looks like I'm on. Well, good afternoon. I am Andy Piper, and I'm here to talk to you about Agile agency, which was a cunning title to get this talk into this conference. Trusting people to get things done. Now, if you like reading, a lot of this won't be new. I'm an avid reader, especially on sort of management style stuff. But what I want to share is some of the things that I've learnt and how we've applied it in our company, DiffBlue, to great success. So hopefully you'll find it enjoyable. So, my clicker isn't working. Okay, we'll go with the... There we go. Old school wins the day. So, this is a quote by Stephen Covey. Trust is the glue of life. It's the most essential ingredient in effective communication. It's the foundational principle that holds all relationships. And a lot of my talk today is about trust, and I'll sort of build into that more as we go along. So what is it that I hope you're going to learn? Well, first of all, let's talk a little bit about engineering, how engineering works, or at least my perspective on how engineering works or doesn't work. What makes it smooth? We all want smooth running engineering. And then a little bit about some theory around motivation in particular and how that affects people and how they're motivated to do things. And then my favorite book of the moment, Turn the Ship Around. More on that later. I won't spoil the surprise. And then some practical guidelines from DiffBlue, how we've applied some of these principles and techniques to get stuff done. After all, we're here to build software. We're not here to theorize about management. We want to create great software. So a little bit about me. Although I'm sort of pointy-head now, I am actually very technical. I've got a very technical background. I originally did a PhD at Cambridge in MapReduce. Before Google, didn't make any money, boo-hoo, but there we go. I then worked for BEA for a long time, if you're old enough to remember BEA, Bill, Ed, and Alfred. I was an architect on their WebLogic server platform based in San Francisco for a while. And then I became part of Oracle when Oracle took over BEA and switched to real-time data streaming, so fast data, all of that good stuff. I then switched from big company to small company and became CTO of a small middleware vendor called Push Technology, and then switched back to big company, CBRE, which is the biggest commercial real estate vendor in the world. Got a bit bored of not being able to get anything done, and I like getting things done. And so here I am at DiffBlue. We are a Oxford-based startup using AI to write unit tests. And I actually have another talk at the end of the week about that. Okay, so on with the show. What is Agile agency? So it's all about control, competence, and clarity. And I'll kind of elucidate what I mean by those a little bit later, but just hold on. If you remember nothing else, remember control, competence, and clarity. Or, put it another way, people want to be empowered, but they need a framework to do that safely. So people want agency, but they also want a framework. So Steve Jobs, great guy, Apple, amazing company. But I think Steve Jobs is a great counterexample to what I'm talking about here. And I'm not going to say whether I'm right or wrong. It's just there are different ways to view this problem. And I think what Steve Jobs did was sort of counter to some of the things I'm talking about this afternoon. There's a great blog about how Steve Jobs worked. But some of the things he did was he very much micromanaged people. He gave immediate feedback in sort of quite harsh ways. He withheld context, so people didn't know quite what they were working on or why. He charmed people, and then he immediately humiliated them. And a lot of the decision-making at Apple was done top-down, so many of the teams lower down the organization had no clue. And there were good reasons for this. They were sort of trying to segment information so that stuff didn't leak out. And that was the way it was done. But I don't really want to work like that. I don't know about you. Maybe you're in an organization where that works. All power to you. But my thesis is that there is another way to get stuff done that doesn't involve these sorts of techniques. So here's a quote from Matthew Lodge, who's our CEO at Diff Blue. Diff Blue is made of people who are extremely passionate, care deeply about the mission, put customers first, and get stuff done without unnecessary drama. And the emphasis here on getting things done and a lack of drama. And I'll come on to that a little bit more. So let's talk about engineering and how I view engineering. So I know you like mussels in Belgium, but I'm sure you like sausages as well. So engineering as a sausage factory. So how do I view engineering as a sausage factory? Well, there's a lot of similarities here. So, okay, we've got bagels or donuts here, but I couldn't find a sausage picture that I didn't have to pay for, so I got the one with the one with donuts. So first of all, quite obviously, making sausages is a continuous process. And when Agile, when engineering works effectively, it is a continuous process. I keep talking to my team about sustainable cadence. You can't have sort of boom and bust in engineering. You have to keep at it because customers always want more. Product people always want more. You have to be able to turn the handle again and again and again to put out software, and if that cadence isn't sustainable, you're toast. And one part of this is about muscle memory. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know how things work, know how the wheels turn. You have to be able to do it again and again so that it becomes second nature and so that the process gets more efficient. Another sort of similarity with making sausages, you have to have well-prepared ingredients. They have to be fed in at the front end. They have to be always there. And similarly with Agile, I'm sure if you follow an Agile process, you've got to have high-quality groomed tickets going into the sprint. The worst thing you can have is things that are unclear, where people don't know what they're doing, and then they have to stop and ask questions and do rework and all the rest of it. And another key part of sausage factories is always monitoring quality. So you're always monitoring the output of the product. You're always tweaking and tinkering, trying to just produce the best possible output. And in Agile, you're doing a similar thing. You're measuring operational efficiency, and you're doing that through statistics, through ceremonies, through feedback, that sort of thing. And you're also assessing delivery impact. And this is very, very key to a smooth running operation, with an emphasis on smooth. And this is how we hit deadlines, right? Deadlines are not about boom or bust. It's about a smooth, continuous process that is highly efficient and allows you to predictably deliver what you've been asked to. So how do we break this? I'm sure you can all come up with reasons. I'm sure you've all seen engineering processes break. So here are some that I've identified and seen in action. So in a sausage factory, poor quality ingredients, garbage in, garbage out. Same with engineering. You put in the wrong information, poor input from product in particular, poorly written tickets, poor customer input, and the whole thing kind of falls apart. Changing the production line. This is I'm sure you've seen this with staff members, changing the team, people leaving, people joining, changing management, changing company. I'm sure we've all been part of those sorts of processes. They're all necessary at some time, but they create a lot of churn that just basically breaks the process. Dirt in component parts, like things getting in the way and the whole thing falls apart. In particular, for instance, toxic team members. I'm sure you can all identify that situation where someone in a team has just been entirely toxic to the team, and these individuals have a way of poisoning the whole group, and so that nothing works. And this sort of leads to a lack of team cohesion, a lack of problem solving. And Agile is all about the team taking responsibility to deliver, and you can't do that if you've got problems in the process. And then my kind of favorite is manual intervention. Everybody loves to do this, but it almost never works well, right? Crashing a sprint. You're saying, oh, we were going to do this, and now we're going to do this, and by the way, you've got, I don't know, 12 hours notice. So everybody likes to think that that works, but generally it doesn't. I think we've done this many, many times, and every time the outcome has just not been what we were seeking. And then finally, not providing timely input or output. And often this sort of translates into too little or too much planning. So all this translates into a lack of drama. If you go back to the quote from my boss, the CEO, we want a smooth process that doesn't have too much change or drama. That's how we get things through quickly. That's how we hit our deadlines. But there's a little bit of a problem here because Agile implies change, right? Why do we use Agile? It's not waterfall. We're using Agile because we want to respond to change. We want to respond to what customers are telling us, to changing requirements. We want to do little micro pivots when we encounter problems, both practical or in requirements. We want to deliver value early so that we can realign our priorities around what customers are telling us and plan the next increment well. And we want to improve our processes. So Agile implies change, but change can be the enemy of efficient operations. So how do we square that circle, if you will? So back to my original slide. Agile agency is control, competence, and clarity. So staff want to be empowered, but they need a framework to do this safely and efficiently. So I'm going to take a little theoretical interlude at this point. If you like theory, then buckle up. If you don't, you can go to sleep now. So this problem has actually been analyzed for a long time. There's sort of two philosophical views of human nature. So one is that basically people are lazy and self-interested, and you've got to control them. And this is down to someone called Hobbes. And the other view is that, well, people are not lazy and self-interested. They're creative and generous. But the problem is the context around them that makes them do awkward or bad things, the control of them that distorts this. And this is down to Rousseau. And actually, there was a film I watched recently where someone was, apparently they came from Harvard and they said, say something smart. You're from Harvard, say something smart. And she said, well, Hobbes is Rousseau through a dark mirror. So I actually understood that quote based on the research for this talk. So I was quite pleased about that. So now you too can understand that quote if you hear it. So how does this look like in a slightly more practical level? So here's how it looks from a sort of MBA perspective. I do have an MBA as well, though my background is kind of mostly technical. So on the people are bad side of the equation, this is known as Theory X, and this is the idea of scientific management. And often engineers, like such as myself or you, they quite like this idea. It's sort of, people are a bit like machines, and you can manipulate them like machines and pull levers, and they do what you want. And to some degree, that works, and it gives predictability and control, and this is how you get assembly lines. This is what Ford did when he put together his assembly lines. But it also involves breaking tasks down and sort of essentially de-skilling people and taking away their autonomy. So it gives some benefits in terms of predictability, but it also removes autonomy from people. And then on the people are good side of the equation, this is called Theory Y, NeoHuman relations. So this relates to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Hopefully everybody heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Maybe not. One hand up there. That's good. Okay, so I like, this is typical of sort of MBA speak. You remember just a few tiny things. So one thing I like about Maslow's hierarchy of needs is he has this idea of hygiene factors. So these are the things you've got to provide to people for them to take any notice in anything else at all. So they need to have food, they need to have money, they need to have a bed to sleep in, they need to be able to provide for their children and their families. They're just certain things that people need, that if they don't have those, they can't think about anything else at all. And that's kind of at the bottom of his hierarchy. At the top of his hierarchy is what he calls self-actualization. So this is about people becoming the best version of themselves, being able to self-actualize, be able to fulfill their dreams, if you will. And the great thing about this is a lot of people, to fulfill their dreams, they want autonomy, they want job satisfaction, they want enrichment. And so that kind of works if people are good, if they do what you think they're going to, but it doesn't work so much if people are bad. So there's a little bit of a tension here between these two theories, and you can see there's no kind of right or wrong answer here, but there's just things that people have theorized about for a long time. So, which is Agile? Are people good or are people bad? So, back to my slide. So hopefully you're beginning to remember this. Agile agency is control, competence, clarity. So people want to be empowered, want to be on the good side of the equation, but they also want to do so within a framework so they can operate safely and efficiently. And a framework sounds a bit like the scientific side of the equation. So my contention is that Agile is both, okay? So people are a bit good and a bit bad. Surprise, surprise. It depends on the context, depends on the person, but it's important to take both frames into consideration when you're considering how to do management. So how do we do this? How do we provide empowerment and a framework within which people can operate? Well, this is where trust comes in. So here's another quote from Simon Sinek. A team is not a group of people that work together. A team is a group of people that trust each other. So trust is really important. So someone who showed how trust can be effective in leadership situations was a guy called L. David Marquet, who was a US submarine captain on the USS Santa Fe. And he wrote this book, Turn the Ship Around. If you've not read it, I thoroughly recommend it. It's really, really easy reading. There's about 600 chapters of 2 pages each, so you can just bite off a nibble each bedtime or whatever. Really well written. But he inherited this, I can't remember what the costs are, it's something like $4 billion for a nuclear submarine. Large amount of money, lots of staff, and they were making mistakes all the time. No one was getting promoted. There was high staff turnover. They were trying to do the impossible, so that the commander said, do X, where X was actually not something that was actually possible, and they would still try and do it, so because they were just following orders. And he characterized this as leading in a culture of followers. And he quickly realized that didn't work. I mean, this ship was in a bad place, and if he didn't turn the ship around, then his career was going to be effectively over as well. So what he did is he developed a new culture based on trust. So what did that look like? Well, first off, surprise, surprise, it started with competence. So competence is about knowing what we're doing through training, through experience, through all those sorts of things. So you need people who actually are able to do the job. It's no use hiring or using people who just simply don't have the skills that you need. It's also about control. This is not about controlling people, but giving people control. So ownership, empowerment, allowing people to do what they need to do to get the job done. And it's about clarity. So letting people know where you're going, providing appropriate vision, and appropriate context as well. Why are we doing these things? What is it we're trying to achieve? And what L. David Marquet, he characterized this as leader-leader. So we're basically trying to turn our staff all into leaders. Now, that may sound a bit like sort of herding cats, but leader-follower was clearly not working for him. And certainly our experience at Diff Blue is that leader-leader is very effective. So this is about devolving responsibility down into your teams, and allowing people to make their own decisions about things within a framework that allows them to do that effectively. So in terms of meeting deadlines, when you operate in a leader-leader mode, actually meeting deadlines is easy, right? If you trust people to get the job done, then you can meet the deadline. If you don't trust the person to get the job done, then maybe you won't. And turning it around the other way, missed deadlines are often a symptom of inefficient top-down control. So where leaders are communicating poorly, where people have poor motivation, where you have very long cycle times. I'm sure everybody's familiar with these sorts of problems within teams. We've all been part of teams and organizations that are not working effectively. And often that's a symptom of effectively too much control from the top rather than too little. So one of the good things about localized decision making is it's very fast and efficient. And so by pushing responsibility down into teams and to individuals, you can get to solutions much more quickly than you otherwise could. Whereas if you're trying to control everything from the top, it inevitably takes longer. Maybe you as the boss know what's going on. I mean, there's certain people who like to be involved in every single decision, but it's just slow. And no one wants slowness in software delivery these days. Everybody wants everything now or yesterday. So this is all about delivering fast. And in DiffBlue, so we are an AI startup, we have to move really fast. We have to develop new product all the time to satisfy our customers, to grow the business. Moving slowly is just not an option. So how do we do that whilst maintaining sort of good quality and good throughput? So this is kind of what we did. So here's some examples of what happened, what worked for us at DiffBlue. And I'm not saying this would necessarily work for you, but these things proved quite effective for us. So first off, competence. So here's another book I like, Good to Great. I'm sure many of you've read it. Again, I thoroughly recommend it if you've not read it. So one of the things that Jim Collins emphasized was having the right people. So competence is easy to achieve if you've got the right people. We've all been there, right? We try to put the wrong person in the wrong job and they did the wrong thing and then everybody gets the blame. So if you can get the right people on the bus through effective hiring, and sometimes through firing as well. I mean, it depends on your organization, but it's much fairer to people if they're the right person in the right organization than that they're just trying to sort of muddle along. And we at DiffBlue effectively did that. We determined early on what's the problem we're trying to solve, what are the skills we need to solve that problem, who do we need to get that problem solved. And we sort of did a stock check of who we had and filled in the blanks, filled in the holes of people and skills that we needed. Now, sometimes hiring is not that easy. You know, it's quite hard hiring at the moment, at least if you're not prepared to pay in bars of gold. And so some of it also can involve sort of cross-training if people have enough of the right skills. I mean, no one's ever a perfect fit for the whole, but you just have to sort of manage that expectation carefully. So competence is also easier if people are doing what they're good at, right? So, I mean, it's a silly thing to say, but sometimes people are just simply in the wrong jobs because they're just not very good at what they're being asked to do. And so I can sort of think of people in my organization who are still in the organization, but they have now found their niche. They're now doing what they're good at rather than what they were bad at, and they are so much happier and so much more effective. So it's really important to recognize what people's skills are, get them in the right seats, and get them working productively. And so we did some reorganization of engineering to affect that. Not necessarily that big of a reorganization, but we did sort of make a few key changes that just put the right people in the right places to leverage their strengths. And it made a massive difference, massive difference. And then finally, competence requires experience and muscle memory. So you can sort of see I mean, you know, often we're talking about technical skills here, but it works in the reverse way as well. I've sort of have this thing I kind of refer to as the MBA effect, where you get a very technical person and they do an MBA. It was kind of me, I don't know, 15 years ago, and then they think they know everything about management, but actually, management is a vocation. So, okay, yes, you need to understand some theory, but you also need to have some practice at it to actually be reasonably good at it. And so don't underrate experience. I think sometimes we sort of try and hire very young and inexperienced people and think they're just going to work hard and get this job done. But it's also a good way to make lots and lots of mistakes and go quite slowly. So need experience, and you also need muscle memory. So I think this is where kind of not changing too quickly is really, really key. If you've got an engineering process, the smoother it is, the faster it can go. And the more you change it, the less smooth it goes. So we hired an experience we lacked. We wrote down our processes and we just kept practicing them. So it was second nature. So people knew their places on the field. They knew what they were trying to do. So we do sprints now, and they're just, or we could almost do them in our sleep because everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing, and they get on with it. So that's competence at DiffBlue. What about control? So control, just as a reminder, this is giving people control rather than trying to control people. So ironically, control actually has to start at the top. If your leaders, and I'm sure I'm talking to some leaders here, if your leaders are not prepared to give people control, then the whole thing falls apart. So it's very important that people buy into this top to bottom. It's no good. It can't be a sort of grassroots thing. That never works. So leaders need to emphasize autonomy, and they need to provide opportunities for people to leverage that autonomy, to think independently about what they're trying to do. One of the things we are keen on doing at DiffBlue is not asking for options. So engineers are really good at saying, well, there's these 16 different things we could do, pick one. And as leaders, actually, that's not what we want. We want people to have an informed opinion about the right thing to do. And by asking people to have an opinion, you're also giving them autonomy. You're devolving responsibility. So ask for proposed solutions based on that informed opinion. And then the final thing is that you've got to have structured communication. I think we use Slack a lot in our organization. I'm sure you all do. Seems to be the way people communicate. Engineers drive-by Slack comments are just the worst. It's not a great way to structure communication. It's good for sort of quick interactions, but sometimes writing things down gives good clarity about what you're trying to do, why you're trying to do it. It teases out problems in what you're trying to do, and so really emphasize the need to write things down. And then from an engineering perspective, and so I run engineering at DiffBlue, leader also requires product buy-in. And basically product needs to be comfortable with engineering taking decisions. Sometimes that can be quite hard. There's often a tension between product and engineering. You've sort of got engineers who want to be product managers and product managers who want to be engineers. I'm sure you've all come across that sort of tension. But the way you get that comfort is through competence. If you can show that you can deliver repeatably, reliably, and to good quality, then that tends to give product confidence in your ability as an organization to make more decisions, to take more autonomous control of what you're doing. But in order to do that, teams and individuals need context and opportunity. So they need to know where we're headed. They need to know why we're trying to do things. If you don't know those things, then you can't make good decisions. You're just going to make a technical decision based on taste, for instance, which is often the worst thing. So you've got to have context. You've got to know from sort of the CEO level down to the DevOps level what it is we're trying to do, why we're trying to do it. And also you need to have opportunity to take and make those decisions. And again, communication, very, very key here between product and engineering. And then finally, clarity at DiffBlue. I don't have a book for clarity, I'm afraid, so I just picked this off the internet. Clarity is about vision, right? So it's about people knowing the why and the where we're going. We're lucky at DiffBlue, so our CEO has a product background, so he's very much about, what is it the customer wants? How do we deliver value? How do we get feedback on that value? And so he very much buys into clearly communicating top to bottom the why and the how so that people can make good decisions. We use OKRs to do this. OKRs sometimes get a bad press, but I find them quite an effective way, certainly within engineering, to set a framework for direction. So the nice thing about OKRs is you can say, well, this is what I want to achieve. You've got to figure out how you're going to achieve it. So you've automatically given autonomy and control to people by purely giving them sort of the objective, the vision. And we do this top to bottom in the company. So we have company OKRs, we have organization OKRs, we have individual OKRs. And they seem to work quite well for us. Now, the thing about clarity is you must do your job. So trust is trusting people to do their job and you not trying to do their job. So as soon as you start trying to do someone else's job, often you don't have context. Often you don't have clarity about what is supposed to be done. And again, it's if I in my engineering teams, if suddenly I had one of the engineers trying to be the manager and the manager trying to write some code about something or other, it just would all fall apart. You've got to trust people to do their jobs and get on with their jobs, and that can be quite hard sometimes. It's sort of human nature to want to control things. But what we found is that the more you trust people, and as long as they've got the right competence, the right skills, the more they rise to the challenge and take appropriate action. And then finally, clarity requires focus and questioning. So it's not, the vision is not always clear, okay? So when you dig into the why, sometimes these things, you can find flaws. And the way you resolve those flaws is by questioning. So question everything, and we question everything. We have a lot of, in particular between product and engineering, product questioning engineering, engineering questioning product. It's like that's the way that we resolve to good decision-making, good clarity on what we're trying to do. And then the other thing you must do is, ideally you agree on what you're trying to do, but if you don't agree, disagree and commit. So the worst thing in the world is to have people who disagree about the vision and then try and go in different directions. That's a good way to crash an organization. You must disagree and commit and move on. Okay, so reaching the end of my talk here. So what I've described is that engineering can be smooth or it can be rough, but the way that you do it is all important. And the key is people. So if you have the right people working on the right things with the right skills, with a high degree of autonomy and trust, you can achieve great things. And at DiffBlue, we're doing that. So we've made some mistakes, we've done some things wrong, we've got some things right as well. And I think our products and our culture and our customers speak volumes to this process. And this has been, I've been at DiffBlue 3 years now, and so it's taken that long to really bed things down. These things take time. You can go into organizations and your boss expects change in, like, I don't know, 6 weeks or whatever. And actually, these things take time. People don't respond like levers often. You have to sort of bed the machine down. You have to get the wheels turning. You get to go faster and faster. But when you do, you can achieve great things. So one of the OKRs I set my team was to submit talks to conferences. And so because I wanted to lead by example, I did the same, and mine was the only one that was accepted. So here I am talking to you. I am actually talking again on Thursday, so if you like this talk, please come along, Thursday, 11:50, room 7. So our company does AI for code. So we do automatic test writing in Java, and if you don't like writing unit tests, we can write your tests for you. So please come along or visit us on our stand 16. Okay, that's the end of my talk. If you had any questions, I think you're going to have to shout them out really loudly. There's no roving mic, I'm afraid, so feel free to ask questions. Oh, there's a guy at the front here. I can probably...
You mentioned practicing processes. Can you give a concrete example about as a team?
So the question was, mention practicing processes, concrete example. Yeah, so I mean, the easiest example is DevOps, right? So our release process, the first thing you've got to do is write it down, right? And then you've got to practice it manually, and then ideally you've got to automate it. So that's one way you can do it. I suppose the other way is for practicing processes. I mean, it's practicing through doing. So it's not like we have dry runs of many things. It's just trying to do the same thing again and again so for instance, I've got a guy who's my sort of operations manager, and one of the things I got him to write down was a timeline. Like, when do things happen in a release? When do we expect things to happen? How can we play with those timelines to get more value out of the pipeline? Sort of constantly tinkering with those sorts of pieces. Any other questions? Oh, another one at the front here.
In the control part that you were talking about, favoring written communication, not in the form of Slack, but in the form of structured documentation. And so I actually prefer that kind of approach, but I find that it is hard to convince people to do the same thing. So out of laziness sometimes, they just prefer doing either chats or meetings.
Yeah.
And even in a perfect world where everyone actually writes documents, then the number of documents grows, and then they get out of sync, get outdated. So how do you deal with this kind of?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. So the question was, how do you convince people to write stuff down effectively? How do you write documents? Because lots of people don't want to write documents. So I think the first thing I'd emphasize is it's not so much about the document, it's about the thought process that goes into producing the document, okay? So it's that writing things down has a way of focusing clarity, okay? So even if you throw the thing away at the end, you've got that focus. The worst thing, if you're doing it all in Slack, there's no conclusion, okay? On the flip side, if you write too much down, we've all been there. I'm sure there are large consultancies here who like writing lots of stuff down and producing sort of large trees of paper. That's overwhelming as well, of course. So you've got to find a balance there. So I think we run an Agile process. One of the things about Agile is the code is the documentation, and so there's definitely a trade-off there. But I think what I'm trying to emphasize is there's a time and a place. So if you're failing to get consensus on something, then writing it down is probably the way forward. Any more? No one wants to shout from the back. Okay, good. Right, well, thanks very much for attending. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.